Hi guys, I hope you're doing alright. So this video is going to be a pros and cons of Paraguay. I'm going to take my time to go through the pros and cons after living here for 7 months, living there full time, not like going to Brazil, coming back, or things like that. So we are going to go through this. I'm currently in, show you, in the center of Altos, which is one of my favorite towns in Paraguay. It's really nice. There's a beautiful church in the middle. And so let's go. So the first pro, can I enter? And I will look at it from your perspective. Can I easily enter Paraguay? Answer is yes. For most nationality, it is easy to enter Paraguay. There might be some nationality like Chinese people where it's harder, but for most nationality, it is easy to enter Paraguay. There's no financial requirement if you go for the temporary residency of 2 years. They're not asking you for 10,000, 50,000 USD, or to prove any financial solvency. And this is very important in a context where a lot of countries around the world are asking you about your financial to be able to get residence there. It is pretty easy to apply for residency, yet you do need quite an extensive number of paper all along, especially, for instance, for the cédula, which is the national ID, cédula in Spanish. And you're gonna go through different process, right? You can pay someone to help you with this. There will be very different prices, some expensive, 3,000 USD, 3,000 euro, some cheaper, 500 USD, 500 euro. The service is basically almost the same. So from an entry perspective, from a visa perspective, it is easy. There's a path toward being a permanent resident. So you go for initial temporary residency of 2 years, then you can transform that into a 10-year permanent residency. From a wealth perspective, a number of people are looking for places around the world where they can protect their wealth. So you protect your wealth from what? From taxation. So taxation level in Paraguay is low. You would expect between 0 and 10%, depending on what you do, the structure you adopt. But the taxation level is low. I'm looking at my phone because I have some notes as well, so I want to make sure it's... Keeping your wealth is also about the cost of life. If you have a cost of life which is high, then you can't keep much of your wealth. It's difficult. The cost of life in Paraguay is relatively cheap. When I say cheap, relatively cheap, price of house, price of land, rental, food, utilities, insurance, medical care, car, yes and no, electronics, yes and no. There's a number of products that you can procure here as well. But relatively compared to what you used to pay in the West, if you are running into Europe with energy bill of 100 euro a month, here I only pay 20 euro a month with aircon in the house, a number of hours per day and all these kind of things, right? So price of energy is very low here, relatively very low. For those of you who care, so we're talking about the pros of Paraguay and I'm looking at your perspective. For those of you who care about autonomy, Paraguay is one of the best places. And that's the reason why it was my personal choice in terms of moving. A must criteria was our autonomy in terms of thinking, water, food, energy, healing, transportation, communication. On all that, we were finding Paraguay to be a very good choice. So in terms of pros, independence of autonomy of thinking, you're not bothered by the agenda. There's no wokeism here. The local population don't like that, don't want that. That's good. There's no constant brainwashing. There is a bit, but not constantly, not those topics like the pandemic, the war, the gender equality, diversity, and all these kind of topics which are used to polarize the population. So the population here is not polarized, and that's a good point. Autonomy of water, we sit on the Guarani aquifer, so there's water on the ground in abundance. You see this across my video on YouTube, where when I shoot or from drone and stuff like that, you see a lot of rivers. Go on Google Earth, you can see all those stream of water. Autonomy in terms of food, there's a lot of food abundance here. Meat, they are big in terms of meat. So if you, many of you may know the lion's diet or things like that. This is basically a strategy to heal your body as well and feel better. Quite a number of my connections came here and tried those diets, and like they recover from structurally issues that they had for the past 10 to 15 years. It's insane, but it does work. Your ability to quickly get a farm animal, chicken, to grow your own vegetable, to there's literally fruit tree in most of the streets. So you've got mango falling on the ground and stuff like that. It sounds, and for me coming, so I come from recently Spain, and Spain is a big producer of fruits, yet in the street you won't find fruits. Here, you literally go to the street, find some mango tree in December and Jan, and get the mango from the floor and eat them, and that's it. So I was joking with a number of friends, but you cannot be poor, you cannot die of hunger in Paraguay. It's impossible. There's water almost everywhere, and there's access to food. Autonomy in terms of healing, ability to grow your own plants, no regulation around this, and the fact that there is soil, water, and sun, so things grow quickly, you can imagine. Autonomy in terms of energy, price of energy is relatively cheap due to the fact that there's a lot of water resources. So they created 2 hydro dams, especially the one at the front border with Brazil, which is one of the main one in the world. And they are net positive in terms of energy production, meaning that they export their energy to Brazil and Argentina, if I believe. Pros in terms of people. So it's important when you move, sometimes you ask yourself, how are the people there? And unless you go there, it's very hard to really grasp how are the people. Well, I would say they are friendly. You can talk to them. I can go to anyone in the street there and start a conversation. There's really no problem with that. Where in Europe, or if I take, for instance, Germany, it would be like almost offensive to go talk to someone in the street sometimes. They wouldn't understand why you talk to me. No, here we engage in conversation. It's just the nature of things, and it makes things easier. And one of the main, so in regard to that, I'll come back to it multiple times, but one of the main pros of Paraguay is that your mind is at peace, and there's literally no price to that. There's literally no price to that, because you can have millions of dollars. You can be extremely wealthy, but if your mind is not at peace, if you don't feel good, then your money is totally worthless. It's like you're missing something fundamental, and this is something that you regain here in Paraguay through the people, the simplicity of life, the absence of regulation. It's literally another world compared to. So I've been moving to places all over the world. Living in Asia, spent time in Europe, even living on the island in Polynesia, and there's stability and a peace of mind here that you don't get in many places in the world. I used to have this peace of mind as well in Tahiti, for instance, or when you go to Moorea, so it's basically islands in the Pacific where there's almost nothing around. And it's just so remote from everything that you disconnect, and it's good. But you feel that in Paraguay. In terms of pros, so the people is a pro. The fact that they are oriented toward family values. There's a lot of, you see the strength and the importance of the family here. They go into gathering. There's fiesta where they bring the whole family. They go to the river. They bring the whole family. They do a barbecue. This is really, the family unit is very important, and this is so good here in a context where the family units in the West has totally exploded. It has totally exploded with people who don't talk to each other anymore, parents who don't talk to the kids, parents who don't talk, the wife who don't talk to the husband, and it's like, it is sad, but it is good here in the way you can actually strengthen your family by having activities and doing less things that you would do in the West. You do more fundamental. There might be simpler things to do here, but they are more fundamental in terms of reconnecting people. Sorry for the parrots around. They have nets of parrots there, and they love to fly and make noise in the morning. The people, it's Spanish speaking here. Countryside might be Guarani from time to time, but if you speak a Latin language, it's going to be good for you because it will facilitate your integration, especially if you speak French. Spanish is not very difficult to learn. It's a simpler language in a way, right? There's less sentences, less words, I would say. I would just give you an example. And this part of the simplicity of the life here, lindo. So lindo is beautiful, and they use lindo for everything. Or la coche muy lindo, or la casa muy lindo. And so it's funny because in a way where in French we would have basically almost 15 to 20 different terms, here it's just come back to just lindo. And that is good and bad for those people who like being refined and like to use specific term for everything. Like you might be annoyed, but the advantage is that it simplifies your approach to things in life, make it easier and simpler. And in a context where we've been overwhelmed with information, I think it's a big advantage. Does the country support my well-being? So from your perspective, you would ask yourself if Paraguay supports your well-being. And yes, for me it's a pro. As I said, life is simpler. There's far less constraints, especially from a regulation perspective, and doing things and having the right to do things. And in that case, your brain is more at peace, it's more at ease, and it's fundamental. The effect is massive. You can only understand it when you experience it here. So it's important to come and check it. The nature's tree, flower around. I think to me it's a stress-free environment. There are trees and flowers and things and birds that are beautiful. A lot of flower trees, even like things like fireflies at night. It's amazing. It's really nice. Looking at those massive, so I don't know the name, sorry, but those massive red flower, yellow flower trees. It's amazing. This is just gigantic and so beautiful. It calms you. It puts you in this situation of stress-free. Again, you've got to come here and check it to understand it and feel it, and then you don't want to escape from it. You don't want to revert to the craziness of the West. Clean air. So outside Ascension, because Ascension has the common problem of those developing countries where there's no control of, especially there's a lot of pickups in Ascension. People having large car, motor of 3 liters or more, so it consumes a lot of gas. But countryside is mostly cleaner. I used to have this problem because I live in Asia, I live in Hong Kong, I spend a lot of time in China, so I know what it is to have air with 200 of PM 2.5 or plus. It's not fun at all. Air, it's literally 15 to 20 PM 2.5 most of the time. There's fire from time to time, and this can take massive proportion, but you can't have everything. There's a specific video on YouTube that I did around fires. Fewer toxins entering your body, so it contributes to your well-being. There's barely any chemtrail. I have a mixed feeling around that, but I do think that chemtrail use metals, and it does impact. I think it does impact your body. It does go into your body. It does impact the soil, the water, and everything. I'm not sure exactly what is the strategy behind, but I do not trust a government that doesn't provide me full transparency on what is being done in the sky, especially lying to the people. So in that context, less toxin entering your body, less use of fertilizers, almost no winter, so 3 weeks of winter, and this has a massive impact on your well-being. The fact that you have access to the sun most of the time, so you're gonna get sunburn, potentially like me, right, once in a while, but the sun has a massive impact on your well-being, your health. The fact that, so we're still in the category Paraguay supporting my well-being, the thing that you have access to blue sky. Let me show you. Here you see again, Sunday morning, a fantastic blue sky, and then in the afternoon you will have cloud formation, massive clouds, like normal cloud, not those chemtrail cloud. 3 weeks of winter means it's also less cold. It's insane. I will tell you frankly, I have a massive network in the world, and when I talk to people in Europe right now, especially during the winter season, I'm sick, or they are sick around us. We get the flu, or we get cold, but here people are healthy. I seldom see anyone coughing. It's insane. Or it is a foreigner who's been back to Europe, come back, and then is coughing because he gets something from Europe. But most of the people here are healthy. They are not healthy from a diet perspective, but from a toxin and from having imbalance of the body and having kind of a disease. Well, I know there's different perspective on the word disease, so that's why I'm using it with in a certain manner. But people are not sick, and that's really good. You don't see people coughing. I don't see people sick. I almost never see people with headache. My number of headache has dropped also tremendously. My body feels way better than in Spain. Sun, we cover it. Sun has a positive effect on your mood, and you know that as well. When you have a gray sky every day, your mood is not there. How much freedom do I have? Low to no regulation. So I think it's a pro of Paraguay. You could take fruit from your garden and go sell them in the street, and no one will bother you. No one will come and check. A lot of liberty to create. A lot of things need to be built here in Paraguay. There's this potential. I'm not saying that they need to be built, sorry. Is that there's potential to create here in Paraguay. Fewer mandates. So one big question that many of you have is how was COVID here? How was the pandemic? So there was a sort of lockdown, but people could go around them. You could potentially give some money to the police, or I don't know, based on stories I have heard. But you rather have a constraint to move on a land which is quite big than being stuck in a city in Europe or in Asia or in the US. One of the pros is so structural risk, basically, in terms of natural or man-made disaster. You don't have this there, you don't have tsunami, you don't have typhoon, hurricane, you don't have earthquake, be it natural or man-made, because many of you know that now you can actually trigger all this, especially through weather geoengineering and things like ARP. It's also far and landlocked, which is not a bad thing in the current context. It's a pro from a distance versus the theater play in the West, this deadly theater play. Was basically organized crisis. And it doesn't really make sense for globalists to come here and organize crisis here, especially for a population of 6 million people. So that's what I think. So not an area of conflicts, no direct conflicts. There's no conflict between Paraguay and Brazil, between Paraguay and Bolivia, between Paraguay and Argentina, between Paraguay and Peru, and it's a pretty stable place. It's landlocked. There's not a lot of traffic as well, in and out. It's very important, and I think it will stay in this manner. There's no point integrating Paraguay in the rest of the world if the rest of the world is doing bullshit. I'll be very frank and very clear on this. It doesn't make sense. So if you see Peña, for instance, trying to say, we're going to make Paraguay great by integrating us with what the West is doing, no, it's not the right strategy unless you are a puppet of the West and all those globalist associations where they progress their interests into your country but doesn't benefit the local population. So I would sum up all the pros of Paraguay by higher level of well-being. For me, it's the key point. It's a higher level of well-being, and so if you prioritize your well-being, so health of your body and health of your mind over other aspects, so well-being plus happiness over other aspects like making money, like competition with other people, like achieving in life, from a financial perspective, then you should seriously consider Paraguay, because I'll tell you frankly, I researched dozens and dozens of countries and there's not many options. There's no longer many options available. We're not like 15 or 20 years ago. The context has radically changed to the point where, although the world is extremely big, there's not many places where you can go and where you can build your autonomy. Building your autonomy will be, to me, it's a strategic plan over the next 5 to 10 years in a context where the system wants you to depend more and more on it, so that you don't have any more autonomy, and as you depend on the system, you're obliged to accept everything, be it CBDC, injecting yourself, being taken care of by your own government that will define your life. And that's extremely sad in a context where you should never forget that there shouldn't be any constraint, basically. It's like no one has any idea why we are there, so like don't let anyone define for yourself how you should be living. It's a nonsense, but you only understand that it is nonsense when you've been out of the box and you understand the context of things. That's it for the pro. If you think I'm missing any of the pro, just comment below. I've been quite slow spending my time with you, 25 minutes for the pro. I think that was necessary. Other people may see other things, and really please feel free to share, feel free to give your perspective. I've only been here for 7 months, so and I don't know everything. Now let's go into the cons. And we are going to start with the people, because it's important. So the cons of the people here is the level of education. There's also a perspective where the quantity of iodine that they benefit when they grow is much lower, and that has an impact also on development of the body, right? For those who understand what I mean. And so in that context, the level is low. You're gonna realize it by talking to people. As an example, Lindo is actually an example as well. It makes your life simpler to use just one term for one thing, so like everything is beautiful, Lindo. But your ability to think, to use concept might be also impacted. And so I had one of those French connection, and she was asking me, can you have deep conversation in Paraguay? And so I understood the question right away. She was asking a friend actually. And yeah, I don't think it actually fundamentally got it because it's been there for 10 years. But yeah, you can't have deep conversation with the people there, or the conversation will be different. So this is what I mean by the level. And so education level is low here. They don't learn the same things. They also don't need to learn the same things. To an extent, it's good because they are not brainwashed by the system. But there's a number of conversations that you cannot have because they don't think in the same manner. They don't have the same knowledge and things like that. Or whether they have other type of knowledge, for instance, in terms of autonomy, what plant to eat, and how things are working, the weather, the nature, which is also very important. But it is something that you want to take into account. I'll give you another example because it's not really easy to explain. You need to do the experience of it to really understand it. When they build a house, for instance, let's imagine that we need to build a cabin shower. And so for them, it might be fine that the floor in the cabin shower has an incline, but an incline in the reverse way of the water flowing normally to go out through the drain. It's like, okay. And it's like that. So it might be funny for you. It's like, why the fuck they are doing it in this manner? I was like, it's just, yeah, the level of expectation is not at all our level in the West. So you need to be aware of that. Otherwise, you're going to be frustrated. I have a Canadian friend who arrives there and complains about everything. Yeah, but you should know where you move to and revise a bit your expectation. Relatively obedient population. So this is very important topic, right? Because this is what plays in terms of when a pandemic happened and all this kind of bullshit. So they have been under, the local population has been under dictatorship for decades and decades. And so what does it mean from a mindset perspective? It means that they are used to obey orders. If you have a strong man at the head of your system who tell you what to do for enough time, then you just used to obey, because if you don't bend, it's gonna be very hard for you. So you've got to deploy a lot of energy, and you've got to extract yourself from this system if you don't want to bend. And so so quite a number of people here are obedient. They just obey rules. And this could be, I see it as a cons because I prefer people who use their brain and reason and ask why, rather than just stupidly obey any order. This is extreme. It could be actually extremely dangerous. So you need to be careful about that. I would say that on Earth, there's not many populations that aren't obedient. In the West, we are supposedly smarter, but we've been massively obedient. So I would say IQ level and level of education has nothing to do with being obedient or not being obedient. Maybe how much you've been brainwashed by the system has to do with your level of obedience. In that case, it would be brainwashed by totalitarianism and dictators. You need to do that, use of the force, so yeah, they are obedient. I don't know, I'd love to get your perspective on that because it's important. I've been searching for a country where people are not obedient, are quite resistant. It's not easy. Maybe my friend Cliff in Malta was telling me that people in Malta not obedient and very resistant. So maybe there, I don't know. Okay. Other foreigners in Paraguay, and I put that into the cons. Why? Because a lot of them arrive there and they don't change their mindset. Their mindset is exactly the same. So it's not because you take the plane and you're gonna travel for 12 hours that your mindset will gonna change. You remain the same people. And so if you are competitive, if you have a mindset which is negative, then you're gonna bring the same mindset. And it's what happened for many foreigners here who still go into individualism, try to compete against each other instead of teaming up. I've been really disappointed about that here in context of Paraguay, where we've got a fantastic context here offered by the country of Paraguay and Paraguayan people, yet we are unable to team up together and do something great for us and for the people. It's sad, but it's a mirror of the Western society to such an extent. So my message to Paraguay is that don't let too many foreigners enter here, or let the foreigner enter here with the right mindset. It might shock many of you, but it's true because it's the best way to fuck up your country. They are triggering a lot of inflation because some of the local population and people in business think that they can sell something that is usually worth $1, $3 here. And yeah, inflation is arriving, and that's going to impact the country negatively. Quite some folks with psychological trauma. So, once again, let me put my battery. Yep, here we go. Cool. So, some foreigners arrive here, but they haven't resolved their trauma, and so they're going to still act as they do in the West, and I think it's not really positive. What else? Financials. So accounts of financial. There's quite a number of scams, and they are not really led by local people. They are more led by foreigners. So some foreigners arriving here, they realize that they can't make money with the local population. They may not have revenues, or they have little revenue. And then they say, okay, where can I find money? And so they see all those foreigners arriving, the other foreigner arriving with 100, 200, 300, 500, a million, 2 million, 3 million US dollar of wealth. And so they're like, okay, can I squeeze that a bit, right? Can I find something? So they go into purchasing land, trying to resell it at five times the price, trying to scam you on whatever they can scam you. And it's sad because this is playing into the category of teaming. Like, it's reverse of teaming. We try to scam the other people who arrive there because we think they have money, and then it's the way to make money. But then we're just reproducing the system of the West again once more. So, some of the foreigners doing that, I've been basically almost exposing them, and they are really unhappy about that. They even thumb down my videos whenever I upload something on YouTube or something like that. In a way, I don't give a shit. We're not there to destroy if you come here to Paraguay to bring back shitty values, bring back what we have created in the West, then you should get out. Either by yourself, or the government should kick you out at some point, because it doesn't contribute anything at all. It's going to make things worse, and then screw the country, people were gonna leave and then go to another place and try the same thing again, which is a bit of a trend, like finding a country where things are good, making them bad, and then finding another country. To be frank, this is a strategy this is a trend that is happening, unfortunately. Unless the country strategically realize what's happening and put in place some guardrails so that these things don't happen. So other foreigners in Paraguay, I put it in a cons. There are some great people here. There's people with fantastic skills, but they are not really keen to team up with others. It remains highly transactional to me. It's sad because they really have skills which are useful. So we were in financial, sorry. Financial, so one of the cons is that inflation is coming. You see it in the price of food, and it's not coming by increasing by 10% or 20%. It comes by increasing by 50 or 100 or 200%. And this can be shocking. You go to a restaurant, that used to be 100,000 guarani for something, and then it's 150,000 guarani, 50% increase, price increase. Wow, that is painful. I can tell you that it's painful. So if you have a lot of wealth, if you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of euros, it's fine. But think about it strategically. It doesn't benefit the local population. For them, an increase of 50% or 100% in the price of food is massive. It is massive. And in that context, how do they think like, oh, if one tells them like, oh, the foreigners are responsible for them, they bring inflation. Then what happens? They have a bad attitude, they have the relationship with foreign people, it changed. The price of land has been increasing as well. So some people have hype, literally some place in Paraguay, like Piribibui, like Caracupe, like other places. But hyping those places and drawing foreigners there has contributed to bringing a lot of inflation. So if you own a piece of land and you bought them 5 years ago, yeah, good for you. You've done times X3, X4. But if you're going to buy now, then you buy at a massively inflated price, to the point where there is some price of land that don't really make sense. You can now quickly we realize some foreigners will realize that they rather buy in another country than buying in Paraguay, because the price of land in some places is totally inflated. It's a market which is highly illiquid. So inflation is definitely coming, and you need to factor this in. Banking is uneasy. It's some of the bank would require you to be in the country for 3 years, like Banco Familiar, for instance. You can bank with Bueno once you've got your cedula. You cannot transfer more than 1,000 USD per month. So there are constraints. So there's ways to go around those constraints. You can be creative. People are creative. But this is something you need to factor in. Because if you think that you can bank easily, and it's funny because most of this YouTube video that talk about Paraguay do not talk about that at all. It's only when you arrive at the bank. I was entering Banco Familiar. I was like, I've got my cedula. Could I open an account? Sorry, sir, the bank cannot open an account if you don't have 3 years of residency here. No exception. Bam, bye bye. Bueno, I was like, okay, only 1,000 USD a month, and that's it. So you've got to factor this in. You can still use your foreign credit cards, and then platforms. Crypto is also developed here as well. One of the cons is nature, and hear me about it, because I also put it as a pro. So like, why is this guy talking about? Why is he putting it as an advantage and disadvantage? The nature, the landscape is relatively dull because there's no sea, there's no mountain, only flat and hills. There's a lack of diversity, and if you used to live in, so for instance, you would live in Switzerland with lake, awesome mountains, you would find the nature here like, So I spent a lot of time in Asia, and especially in the water environment, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, with also a lot of animals, and so yeah, that's something you need to compromise with from a nature perspective. Also, the nature is mostly private. Again, most of the people on YouTube don't talk about that. I think it's very important. 2.6% of the people own 85% of the land plus. It means that you want to go to a river, okay. Either you can't because it's private, either you need to ask for authorization, maybe they'll let you in, or you need to pay. I would take an example, Campiri, which is next to Piebibi, on the Piebibi River. It's a balneo station, but it's access to the river, right? The river is nice there, but you need to pay 30,000 guarani per person, which is the equivalent of 3.7 USD as of early 2025. And so that's very expensive. Even for local, that is expensive. So you may say like, okay, we have money, you're a foreigner, you don't care, but it's just the fact of paying to access nature. I don't think it's fair. And so most of it, that's why if you want your piece of paradise, if you want a river, you need to basically buy it. That's it. So that's mine. I can go to it whenever I want. I don't need to pay to access it. That's it. So it's important to factor this in a context where you would tend to think that, oh, there's a lot of nature, so we can access nature. It doesn't work like this. Very limited also national park, right? So it's good to know. There's also no sea, no mountain, highest point 820 meter high, which is not really high. If you used to live in mountainous area, it's going to be a shock, right? Especially there's large section of the country which are flat, and when they are flat, they are also not flat with trees and forests. They are flat with soybean plantation, and that is not cool. That is not beautiful. No, sorry for that. Which leads us to well-being. So there is two things that I think impact your well-being. Potentially is the heat during summer. So summer, which is basically right now. And I'm so hot actually. Sorry, I need to move a bit from the sun. It's it might be 37 now. It's only 10 a.m. So it gets hot in summer. I think it depends on the year, because you know now the weather is, if you understand it, is way more variable. So you can have a year with okay summer, but a year with burning summer. I met quite a number of people around 60 years old who tell me I can't take the heat very well as I'm becoming older, and I understand that. And so they try to move to Argentina. They go down to Argentina. A lot of people have this strategy to moving down south because it's cooler in summer. And get ready for temperature of, so we are in Feb, and it's almost 37 on every day right now. It goes to 40, it can go to 45. It's not humid, so that's a good thing, because if it was humid, it would be horrible. But it's not. It's right now, I think it's 57, 58% humidity, something like that, not more, I think. So it's more dry, hot, which is not too difficult to take in. Plus, you've got the nature around you where you can escape. And another thing that can impact your well-being is parasite and insect. There's areas which are literally infested with mosquitoes or flies or whatever, and this can really impact your well-being and make your life a nightmare. So factor this in. You take some area, for instance, like Colmena doesn't have much mosquito at all. I'm not sure exactly why, because there's also water and streams around, but it's just an example. When you get constantly bitten by any type of insect, it can make your life a nightmare. There's also some potentially issue that can be triggered by those insects, like dengue fever or other things, right? So something to factor in if you really don't like insects, might not be the place for you. I think it's not too bad. Cons, toxin. Use of pesticide and fertilizer, especially for soybean plantation. So there's the extended use of fertilizer and pesticide for soybean, and soybean is being cultivated massively in Paraguay. It's a massive industry. There's a whole documentary on it, and I think going to put the link below because it's important you see that. It does contribute to toxin inside your body, causing potentially, well, some study have shown that there's DNA impact of those products. Some of those products as fertilizer or pesticide are actually forbidden in Europe. So yeah, that's what I mean by the lack of regulation is good and bad. So it's, in that context, it's bad because it impacts the people who live around them. And I've seen how they spray that by drones or by small plane. You really don't want to be under when they do these kind of things. Toxins in terms of fire, so the fire. Last year the fire burned from late June, early July to end of October. It wasn't fun at all. It's a white layer in the air. It increased the temperature. You can, on some day when it's extreme, you can feel the burn in the air. It's wow. There's a video on this on the YouTube channel. The fire were mostly in Bolivia because Bolivia is near, and the wind were coming from north to south. Everything was being pushed to Paraguay, and there's no way to really escape this in Paraguay unless you would have a house with a special ventilation system. I don't know. One of the cons is regulation. So I say it's pro and cons. It's a system built for extortion. It's very important to understand that. Although there's initiative to get rid of corruption in the system, it's still a system that is heavily corrupted. It's built for extortion, meaning that they could do it on purpose to have something which is not clear in the law, so that they can. You can't be 100% compliant to some laws, and in that context, you can be asked for money or whatever. This is important to understand that. Cons in terms of the Great Reset agenda. The Great Reset agenda. So, large part of the population is living in Ascension, Greater Ascension area, and I think this is a potential risk in the context where they talk to you about C40 cities and things like that. If the population is already not much, 6 million people, but already concentrated in one point, then it's easier to control. You need to think about it as well. And that's the reason why I wouldn't live in Ascension, especially a place which is full of EMF, noise and pollution. Noise not everywhere, but pollution. It's also a small population, and small population are actually easy to get rid of in a context of global agenda and globalists that decide where they're gonna create chaos. We saw that for different places like Gaza, like other places, in, for instance, Hawaii. I don't know, on this, I won't expand much because I know this topic is controversial, but I have my view on that, and you need to be careful. Be very careful about countries with a large amount, quite some space, but very low population, especially regroup in a specific area, with 2.6 of the people owning 85% of the land. Yeah, it's just, yeah. And that's the reason why I think the situation remain dynamic. You need to keep flexibility. I asked the question on a Telegram group. People have no idea how much time they're gonna stay in Paraguay. And it's true, me neither. We'll see, right, how the situation evolves. That's it for the cons. I would say overall there's way more pros than cons, but it's very important that you move here and you just don't simply look at the pros, but you are also aware of the cons, because if any of those cons that you have identified turn out to massively grow, so for instance the risk of globalist events being done in Paraguay or whatsoever, which is very low probability, but it would be high impact. That's it. So if you see other cons, feel free to share. I hope the video is useful. I spent 50 minutes on the pros and cons. That was really quite long. ask you to focus on that, and thank you if you stay until the end of the video. But I think that was necessary, because if you're going to move with your family, if you're going to move alone or with your family or whatsoever, it is such a massive endeavor that you should have access to the best information that is out there. Do not even hesitate to pay for consulting 100 or 500 euro, because it's so important to have relevant information on this. All right? Cheers and have a good day.